Hey guys, I'm Dave and welcome to the Trull Gallery. Today, we're going to talk about saw blades. Today, we're going to go over the basics of circular saw blades and the three basic types of blades you'll see most often. And hopefully, by the end of this video, you'll be able to identify which one to use when and which ones you need, which ones you don't need. The blades I'll be showing you today are all 10-inch blades. These can all be used on a table saw, and some can be used on a miter saw or radial arm saw. Don't get me started on those. But we'll start with this guy. And this is again, 10-inch, 24-tooth blade. And this is used for ripping. The 24 teeth each are separated by a rather large gullet and this little open space between the teeth. That large gullet helps evacuate the chips and dust that the blade makes while it's ripping wood. The ripping process removes a fair amount of stuff, so you need these large gullets to help get those out of there. One of the things I want to show you is that all the blades today are going to have carbide teeth on them, and that's these little tips right here. I think steel blades are still available, but I have no idea why you'd want to buy one. The carbide tips will stay sharp much longer than a steel blade would, and is much less likely to burn your wood, although you can still do it if you push it or they get dull. Kind of the opposite of ripping is cross-cutting. And for cross-cutting, you need a lot of teeth. The gullets are much smaller because you're not usually removing as much material during a cross-cut. If you tried to do a cross-cut with a ripped blade, you're going to get a lot more tear out, especially in something like plywood. With all these extra teeth, think of each one taking a little bite as opposed to the rip blade taking that big bite. And at the end, you're going to get a much cleaner cut. Some people don't like changing blades. First they're going to rip, then they're going to cross-cut. Do they really need to change blades 10 times a day? Personally, I lose count of how many times a day I change my blades, but that's just the way I like to work. But if you don't like to change those blades, the probable solution for you is a combination blade. You can see this is actually a combination of the rip and the cross-cut. It's got 5 teeth close together, and then in between that next set is the large gullet. So this will work both as a rip and a cross-cut. But like most tools that are designed to do more than one job, it never really does all of them great. It can still give you a clean cut, both ripping and cross-cutting, but in my opinion, you're not going to get as clean of a cut if you use a dedicated blade. The advantage to a combination blade is you save time because you're not changing blades all day long. Sure, your quality of cut may drop a bit, but as long as you have a nice quality blade and you keep it sharp and clean, then it will do fine for you. If you're doing something that is super fussy or you're just twitchy like I am, I prefer to take the time to switch my blades and use a dedicated rip or crosscut blade based on the work I'm doing. Now, I mentioned keeping your blades clean and sharp. Keeping it clean is fairly simple. There are products like the CMT blade cleaner, and there are several on the market. You don't have to buy this particular one. But you want to avoid anything that's caustic. I remember back in the old days, people used to say that oven cleaner was great. The problem with that is oven cleaner is so nasty that it can actually break down the chemicals that bond the carbide teeth together. So you want to avoid that. And what you're trying to do is clean off the pitch buildup that happens during your cut. And that could be whether it's pine or even kiln-dried hardwood, you're all going to get that buildup over time. So keeping your blades clean will help them stay sharp longer. Sharpening your blades is a little bit trickier. It used to be an easy process. I've taken them into woodworking stores like Rockler or Woodcrafter, something like that, and they have a sharpening service. They send them out and they bring them back, a week later. If you're in a city, you may also find a local service who can pick up your blades, or you can take them to them, they sharpen them at their place, return them to you about a week later. And that's a great way to keep your blades going for years, like that crosscut blade that I showed you. What I found interesting is that I recently purchased a new blade for my miter saw, and the price was so reasonable. I paid less than $50 for that blade. It's almost worth not sending a blade out to be sharpened at least more than once or twice. A sharpening service, and this goes back to the last time I sent one out, and it's been a while. I think I paid $20 to $30, and it tends to be based on tooth count and blade diameter and all that good stuff. But to send a $40 blade out to be sharpened and it costs $20, you do that twice, you could have a new blade. And certainly if you have a good quality blade, you can justify sharpening it several times. And I always encourage people to buy the best tool or blade that you can afford at the time. Do you need to go out and spend $150 on a 10-inch saw blade? I don't think so. There are a lot of really good quality saw blades on the market now for under $100. And like I said, this crosscut blade was probably less than $50. And rip blades are also a little bit less expensive than that. I might send a blade out once or twice at this point, but after that, it's probably worth looking into a new blade. And speaking of new blades, when you buy a new saw, whether it's a table saw or a miter saw, odds are it's going to come with a blade from the manufacturer. Matter of fact, this rip blade that I've been showing you came with my table saw. And I've used it, and it's a decent blade. It's not a great blade. But I quickly upgraded to something a little bit higher quality. It cuts really clean and true. And one of the things about this blade is it has a slightly smaller kerf. Most of your 10-inch blades are going to give you an 1/8-inch kerf, and they probably went with one a little bit smaller because it requires less juice on the saw as I'm working. And using a portable saw, you need all the power you can get sometimes. Still, I upgraded to a different blade, full kerf, that I know will handle the work and give me a nice clean cut. Another thing to look at is the materials of the blade, and I don't mean just the carbide teeth, but the body of these blades are basically stamped steel. And that's great as long as you keep them clean. A couple of manufacturers, like my CMT here or Freud and several others, treat the sides of the blades so that as you're working, it's a little bit more difficult for that pitch to build up. You still have to keep them clean, but the treated face helps with that as well. Think of like a Teflon pan. I know I refer to the high tooth count as being a crosscut blade, but I also use the same blade for any cuts in plywood. The high tooth count on a blade like this does a great job with plywood, whether ripping or cross-cutting. There are a lot of other styles of 10-inch blades that you can get into as you grow. You can get a dedicated plywood or veneer blade, plastics blade, aluminum blade, pretty much all kinds of things. And then you can get into tooth geometry, which is a whole nother video. We won't go into that today. So to bring it all together, what blade do you need? If you're not making super high-end furniture and you don't like changing blades, get yourself a good quality combination blade, put it in your table saw, and go with it. If you want your work to look better with cleaner cuts, and you don't mind taking a little extra time each day, a good rip and crosscut blade will serve you well. This was just a quick introduction to saw blades, focusing mostly on the table saw. Now, once you get used to it, and you know your blades, you know your materials, and you know your safety limits, you can do a lot of things with the table saw. You can mix and match your blades to do the things you need to do. I have several blades that I keep around for specific tasks. I have thin kerf blades. I even keep a 7¼ inch diameter thin kerf blade when I need to do a lot of repetitive cutting or resawing, because it wastes less wood and is, over time, is much less strain on the saw. So if I'm doing a lot of work, something like that is great. I also have a stacked dado set that I use quite regularly. Sorry to my friends overseas. I know that's not a thing for you. And I hear they're working on it. So that whole braking system and the wider blades, they're coming your way. This is just a quick video to give you my thoughts on the basics of circular saw blades, kind of focusing on table saws and a little on the chop saw, to give you a little more information so that you can take your woodworking to the next step. If you have any questions or thoughts on circular saw blades, drop them in the comments below. I'd love to hear them. If you enjoyed this video, maybe give it a thumbs up and share it with friends. If you haven't already, it's time to hit that subscribe button, a little bell, so you get notified each time I put out a new video. As always, not real sure what's coming up next, but should be something interesting. So until then, have a great day, stay safe, and we'll see you soon.